I'm standing in the kitchen chopping vegetables for dinner, the rhythmic thud of the knife against the cutting board almost soothing. It's been a long day at work, another uneventful shift in security. I've been doing this job for years now, ever since I left the military. It's not thrilling, but it keeps me busy, keeps my mind from wandering to places it shouldn't go. As I dice the last carrot, I can't help but notice how quiet the house feels. My wife isn't home yet. She's been working late a lot recently. I used to think nothing of it, but lately I've been paying more attention. There's a pattern to it now, one that I can't ignore. She comes home tired, distracted, sometimes not at all interested in dinner or the plans we'd made. It's as if she's living in a different world, one that I'm not a part of anymore. I finish preparing the food and set the table, a routine that's become oddly comforting in its monotony. But tonight, something feels off. I check my phone, a quick glance at the clock, and I know she should have been home by now. I don't want to be the paranoid husband, the one who jumps to conclusions, but I can't help it. The thoughts creep in like shadows at dusk, growing longer and darker the more I try to push them away. I sit down at the table, waiting, listening to the silence. My mind drifts back to when we first met. There was fire between us, a spark that ignited into something wild and consuming. We were inseparable, the kind of couple that made others envious. But over the years, that fire has faded, replaced by something colder, something I can't quite define. I'm snapped out of my thoughts by the sound of her car pulling into the driveway. I stand, moving to the kitchen window, to watch her as she steps out, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the streetlight. She looks different, more distant, and my chest tightens with an emotion I can't quite place. She walks into the house, her footsteps echoing through the hall, and when she enters the kitchen, there's a brief moment where our eyes meet. I search for something, anything, that might tell me I'm wrong, but all I see is a woman who's hiding something. She kisses me on the cheek, a perfunctory gesture that feels more like a habit than affection. I force a smile, but it doesn't reach my eyes. "Long day?" I ask, keeping my tone casual. She nods, barely looking at me as she moves to pour herself a glass of wine. The silence between us is thick, uncomfortable. After dinner, she leaves her phone on the counter while she showers. I stare at it, the temptation gnawing at me until I can't resist. I unlock it, my heart pounding, and there it is, a text message that shatters everything I thought I knew. Everything seemed ordinary, until now. The moment I read that message, my world crumbles. My hands tremble as I scroll through the text, my eyes skimming over the words that slice through me like a hot knife. There's no doubt now. She's been cheating on me. My wife, the woman I've shared my life with, is betraying me with another man. I can't breathe. My chest tightens, and I feel like I'm drowning in a sea of emotions. Rage, despair, disgust. The phone slips from my hands and clatters to the floor, but I barely notice. My mind is spinning, a chaotic mess of thoughts and images, each one more painful than the last. I knew something was wrong. I saw the signs, felt the distance growing between us. But this is something I never imagined, something I wasn't prepared for. My wife, the woman I love, is sleeping with someone else. And not just anyone, a man I know, a man who's been in our home, shared meals with us, laughed at my jokes. I want to scream, to punch something, to make the pain go away. But I can't. I have to stay calm, stay in control. Losing my temper won't help. It'll only make things worse. I pick up the phone and look at the message again, reading the words over and over until they're burned into my brain. There's no mistaking their meaning. She's meeting him tonight at a hotel across town. She told me she was working late, but she's with him. I can't believe it. I don't want to believe it, but the proof is right here in front of me. I walk to the kitchen, my legs feeling like lead. I pour myself a drink, something strong, and knock it back in one gulp. The alcohol burns as it goes down, but it does nothing to numb the pain. My mind is racing, trying to figure out what to do next. Do I confront her? Do I wait for her to come home and pretend I don't know? Do I pack a bag and leave? None of those options feel right. I'm not the kind of man who runs from a fight. I've been through too much, seen too much, to let something like this break me. But I can't just sit here and do nothing. I have to take action. I have to make her understand what she's done to me, to us. I grab my phone and dial a number I haven't called in a while. It rings twice before he picks up. "What's up, man?" His voice is casual, light. He doesn't know yet. He has no idea what I'm about to ask of him. "I need a favor," I say, my voice steady, controlled. "Are you free tonight?" There's a pause on the other end, and I can hear the gears turning in his head. He knows me well enough to sense when something's off. "What's going on?" "I'll explain when you get here," I say, glancing at the clock. It's already late, but time doesn't matter right now. Nothing does except for what I'm about to do. It's important. "All right, I'm on my way." I hang up and stare at the phone in my hand, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. I know what I'm about to do is dangerous, reckless even, but I don't care. I need to do this. I need to take back control of my life, my marriage, my sanity. I wait, the minutes ticking by like hours until I hear the sound of his car pulling into the driveway. I walk to the door and open it before he can knock. He steps inside, his eyes scanning my face, trying to read what's going on. "What's this about?" he asks, his tone serious now. "I found out she's cheating," I say, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. "With someone we both know." His expression hardens and I can see the anger flashing in his eyes. "That son of a bitch." "I need your help," I continue, my voice cold, detached. "I've been watching them, tracking their movements. She's meeting him tonight, at a hotel." He nods, understanding immediately. "We've been through enough together to know what needs to be done." "What's the plan?" "I'm going to confront them," I say, feeling a surge of adrenaline course through my veins. "But I need backup. I don't know how he'll react, and I can't afford to let this get out of hand." "Of course," he says, his loyalty unwavering. "I've got your back." We sit down, and I lay out the details, the plan forming in my mind with each passing second. I tell him about the hotel, the room number, the timing. I know their routine now, the pattern they've settled into. It's almost too easy. As we talk, I feel a strange sense of calm wash over me. The anger is still there, simmering beneath the surface, but it's controlled now, focused. I'm not just reacting anymore. I'm planning, calculating. This is what I'm good at, what I've always been good at. In the military, they trained us to handle situations like this, to think clearly under pressure, to act decisively. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. When we finish, we sit in silence for a moment, letting the gravity of what we're about to do sink in. I can see the tension in his face, the way his jaw's clenched, his fists tight. He's ready, just like I am. "Let's go," I say, standing up. "It's time." We leave the house, the night air cool against my skin. The drive to the hotel is quiet, both of us lost in our thoughts. I can feel the weight of what's about to happen pressing down on me, but I push it aside. There's no room for doubt, no room for second guessing. This is the only way. When we arrive, we park a block away and walk to the hotel, our steps silent, purposeful. My heart is pounding in my chest, but my mind is clear, my focus sharp. I'm ready for this. We reach the hotel and I spot her car in the parking lot. I feel a wave of anger surge through me, but I keep it under control. This isn't the time to lose my cool. We enter the lobby and take the elevator to the floor where I know they are. The hallway is empty, the silence almost deafening. We walk to the room, and I pause for a moment, my hand hovering over the door. This is it. The moment of truth. I knock, the sound echoing down the hall. There's a pause, and then I hear footsteps approaching the door. My heart is racing, but I keep my breathing steady, my mind focused. The door opens, and there she is, standing in front of me, her eyes wide with shock. She wasn't expecting this, wasn't expecting me. Behind her I see him, lounging on the bed, a smug grin on his face. The sight of him, so comfortable, so confident, ignites a fire in me that I can barely contain. "What the hell are you doing here?" she asks, her voice trembling with fear, or maybe guilt. I can't tell, and I don't care. I think you know, I say, stepping into the room, my friend following close behind. He closes the door behind us, the click of the lock sealing our fates. There's a tense silence, the air thick with unspoken words, with the weight of what's about to happen. I look at her, at the man who's taken what's mine, and I feel nothing but cold, hard resolve. I take a deep breath, my hand tightening around the handle of the bat I've concealed under my jacket. The time for talking is over. It's time to take action, to reclaim what's been stolen from me. And I know exactly where to hit. The man on the bed doesn't even see it coming. The bat swings through the air with a satisfying whoosh, and the crack of bone against wood echoes in the small room. He goes down hard, his body crumpling to the floor, and for a moment, everything is still. My wife screams, her voice piercing through the fog of rage that settled over me. But I don't stop. I can't stop. Not until he's learned his lesson, not until he knows the price of what he's done. I raise the bat again, ready to strike, but my friend grabs my arm, pulling me back. Enough, he says, his voice firm. He's done. I look down at the man on the floor, at the blood pooling around him, and I feel a strange sense of satisfaction. It's over. The pain, the betrayal, it's all been released, channeled into this act of violence. But as I stand there breathing heavily, my wife sobbing in the corner, I realize something else. This isn't the end. This is just the beginning of a new nightmare, one that I created with my own hands. I know I should feel something other than this hollow satisfaction as I watch the man on the floor groan in pain, but all I can think about is how much more I need to do. I've just begun to solve this problem, and now standing in the aftermath, I realize how much deeper the situation goes. As my friend and I drag the man's limp body out of the hotel room, my mind races with the weight of what we've done. My hands are steady, but inside my thoughts churn like a storm. There's no turning back, no undoing what's been done. The evidence is all around us, the bruises forming on his skin, the bloodstains on the carpet, the look of horror on my wife's face as she stood frozen in the doorway. We get the man into the trunk of my car, my friend doing most of the heavy lifting while I keep watch, making sure no one sees us. My heart pounds in my chest, but my face stays calm, focused. This isn't the first time I've had to deal with a situation like this, but it's different now. This isn't war. This is personal. The lines between right and wrong have blurred beyond recognition. My friend slams the trunk shut, and we drive in silence, the dark road stretching out before us like a tunnel with no end. My mind keeps going back to the look on her face. My wife, the woman I thought I knew. She wasn't just shocked, she was terrified. Of me. I drop my friend off near his house, both of us understanding without words that we'll keep our distance for a while. He gives me a look before getting out of the car, a mix of concern and warning, but I brush it off. I've got too much to handle right now to worry about what he thinks. Back at home, I sit in the dark living room, the weight of the silence pressing down on me. My wife hasn't said a word since we got back. She's in the bedroom, the door locked. I can imagine her on the other side, curled up on the bed, her mind racing just like mine. The air between us feels like a barrier, thick and impenetrable. I know I need to talk to her, to explain, but what can I say? That this was the only way? That I had to do it to protect us, to reclaim what we've lost? The truth is, I'm not sure I believe that myself. I walk to the bedroom door and knock softly. We need to talk. There's no answer, just the muffled sound of her breathing on the other side. I try the handle, but it's locked and I don't push it. Instead, I lean against the door, my forehead resting on the cool wood. Please, I say, my voice barely above a whisper. We can figure this out. But there's only silence in response, and I know she's not ready. Maybe she never will be. I leave her there and go back to the living room, sinking into the couch. My mind is racing, replaying everything that's happened, every decision I've made. I know I should be thinking about what to do next, how to clean up this mess. But all I can think about is her, the way she looked at me when she realized what I was capable of. I don't sleep that night. Instead, I sit there in the dark, my mind spiraling into the depths of what I've done. I try to justify it, Try to convince myself that it was necessary, that I had no other choice. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that's a lie. When the morning light starts to filter through the curtains, I feel like a different person. The man who went to that hotel last night isn't the same man who's sitting here now. I've crossed a line and there's no going back. I'm in too deep, and the consequences are starting to close in on me. I hear her stirring in the bedroom, the sound of the door unlocking, and my heart skips a beat. I sit up, trying to prepare myself for whatever comes next, but I have no idea what to expect. She walks into the living room, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. She looks at me, and for a moment, neither of us says anything. The silence between us is heavy, filled with everything that's gone unsaid. Finally, she speaks. "What are we going to do?" Her voice is barely above a whisper, and I can see the fear in her eyes. Not just fear of what's happened, but fear of me, of what I've become. It hits me harder than I expected, but I push it down, focusing on the problem at hand. "We're going to take care of it," I say, trying to keep my voice steady. "We'll make sure there's no trace of him, and we'll move on. No one will ever know." She shakes her head, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Move on? How can we just move on from this? You nearly killed him." "I did what I had to do," I say, my voice firm. "For us." She takes a step back, her arms wrapping around herself as if trying to protect herself from the reality of what I'm saying. "This isn't us. This isn't who we are." I feel a surge of frustration, of anger that she doesn't understand, but I swallow it down, trying to keep control. "It's who we have to be now. If we want to survive this, we have to be strong." She looks at me, and I can see the realization dawning in her eyes. The realization that she's stuck in this with me, whether she likes it or not. There's no escape, no going back to the way things were. We're both trapped in this nightmare, and the only way out is through. "We need to get rid of his car," I say, standing up, trying to focus on the practicalities. "Make it look like he left town." She nods, but I can see the hesitation in her eyes, the doubt. I know she's thinking about what this means, about what kind of life we're going to have now, but there's no time for that. We have to act, and we have to act fast. The next few hours are a blur of activity. We drive the car to a remote spot, wiping down everything we touched, making sure there's no trace of us. I can see the way her hands shake, the way she flinches at every sound, but she does what needs to be done. There's no other choice. When it's over, we stand there in the middle of nowhere, the car abandoned, and I feel a strange sense of relief. It's done. He's gone. And now we can start to put the pieces back together. But as we drive home, the silence between us is suffocating. I can feel the distance growing, the space that was once filled with love and trust, now a chasm of fear and doubt. We walk into the house and she heads straight to the bedroom without a word. I know I should follow her, try to talk, try to make things right, but I can't. I don't have the energy, the words, or the will. Instead, I sit down on the couch, staring at the empty space where she was just a moment ago, and I feel a wave of exhaustion wash over me. I've won, haven't I? I got rid of the man who was ruining my life, who was taking everything that was mine. But as I sit here in the quiet, the satisfaction I expected to feel is nowhere to be found. All I feel is emptiness, a gnawing void that I can't seem to fill. I don't know how long I sit there, lost in thought, before I hear her voice again, soft and hesitant. "What happens now?" I turn to look at her, standing in the doorway, her face pale and drawn. She looks fragile, like she might break at any moment, and it hits me all over again how much I've changed her, how much I've changed us. "We move on," I say, the words hollow even to my own ears. "We forget this ever happened." But as I say it, I know it's a lie. There's no forgetting, no moving on. This is our reality now, and we're going to have to live with it, day after day, night after night. As she walks back into the bedroom, leaving me alone with my thoughts, I realize the full weight of what I've done. I've taken control, taken back what was mine, but at what cost? The man is gone, but the damage is done, and there's no going back. All I can do now is keep moving forward, one step at a time, hoping that somehow we'll find a way to survive this. But deep down, I know the truth. We're not the same people we were before. We're not the same couple. And no matter how hard we try to move on, the darkness will always be there, lurking in the shadows, waiting to consume us. I can feel the weight of the bat in my hands, its cold metal handle digging into my palms. It feels almost familiar, a tool of violence that I know how to use all too well. My old combat instincts kick in as I calculate the angles, the amount of force I'll need to make sure the damage is done without killing him outright. My mind is a storm of memories, my wife's laughter mingling with the sound of her gasp for air as she cried out his name in pleasure. It's all I can see, all I can hear, and it's driving me to the edge. My combat buddy stands beside me, silent but ready. He knows what's coming, and he knows why it has to be done. There's a strange understanding between us, forged in the fires of battle. We've been through hell together, seen the worst of humanity, and now we're back here, facing the darkest part of ourselves. The man on the floor is starting to stir, his groans of pain filling the room. I tighten my grip on the bat, every muscle in my body coiled like a spring, ready to release the pent-up rage that's been building inside me since I first saw those messages. My wife is out of sight, somewhere in the house, probably still in shock. I can't think about her now, not when I'm about to do this. I raise the bat, feeling its weight, and then I bring it down hard on the man's knee. The crack of bone is sickening, but it's not enough. I swing again, this time at his other leg, then his ankles. Each blow is calculated, aimed to inflict maximum pain while keeping him conscious. I want him to feel every bit of it, to know exactly why this is happening. My mind flashes back to our life before all this. The quiet mornings, the lazy Sundays spent together, the way she used to look at me like I was her whole world. Where did it all go wrong? How did we end up here, with me standing over a man I once considered a friend, beating him within an inch of his life? As I swing again, this time aiming for his groin, I feel a wave of something dark and primal surge through me. Satisfaction? Maybe. But it's twisted, tainted by the knowledge that I'm destroying everything I once held dear. The man's screams are muffled by the gag my friend shoved into his mouth, but I can still hear them, each one a reminder of how far I've fallen. I strike again, and again, until my arms are burning with the effort and the room is filled with the sound of his bones breaking. I stop, breathing heavily, my hands shaking as I lower the bat. The man is barely conscious, his body a broken mess on the floor. There's blood pooling around him, and the sight of it brings me back to reality, snapping me out of the violent trance I've been in. My friend places a hand on my shoulder, a silent signal that it's enough. I nod, my throat tight, and step back, dropping the bat with a clatter. It feels like the room is spinning, the walls closing in around me. I've done it. I've taken my revenge. But the relief I thought I'd feel is nowhere to be found. Instead, there's only a sickening emptiness, a hollow echo where my soul used to be. I turn to leave the room, but then I see her. My wife standing in the doorway, her face pale and drawn, her eyes wide with horror. She's been watching the whole time, and the look on her face tells me everything I need to know. She's terrified of me, of what I've become, and I can't blame her. For a moment, we just stare at each other, the air between us thick with the weight of what I've done. Then she opens her mouth to scream, the sound piercing the silence like a knife. It's a raw, primal sound, filled with fear and disbelief, and it cuts through me like a blade. My friend rushes forward, trying to calm her down, but she backs away, her eyes never leaving mine. She looks at me like I'm a monster, and maybe that's exactly what I am now. "Don't touch me," she screams, her voice cracking. "Stay away from me." I take a step toward her, but she flinches, her whole body trembling with fear. The sight of it makes my stomach turn, and I stop, my hands held up in surrender. "It's okay," I try to say, but the words feel hollow, meaningless. Nothing is okay. Nothing will ever be okay again. She shakes her head, backing away until she hits the wall, her hands pressed flat against it, like she's trying to melt into the plaster. "What did you do? What the hell did you do?" I don't have an answer for her. not one that will make any of this better. So I just stand there, helpless, watching as the woman I love crumbles before my eyes. My friend finally manages to grab her, pulling her away from the wall and into the hallway. She struggles against him, her screams echoing through the house, but he holds her tight, whispering something I can't hear. I feel like I'm watching it all from a distance, like I'm not really here, not really a part of this nightmare, but I am. I'm the one who made it happen. I'm the one who destroyed everything. When the screaming finally stops, the house falls into a heavy, oppressive silence. My friend comes back into the room, his face grim. "She's in shock," he says quietly. "We need to get her out of here." I nod numbly, knowing he's right, but the thought of leaving this place, of walking away from the mess I've made, feels impossible. How can I just walk away from this? But I don't have a choice. We can't stay here, not with the evidence of what I've done still bleeding out on the floor. I follow my friend out of the room, my legs feeling like lead as I walk down the hallway. My wife is sitting on the stairs, her face buried in her hands, her whole body shaking with silent sobs. I want to go to her, to hold her, to tell her that everything will be all right. But I can't. I've lost that right. "We need to go," my friend says, his voice gentle but firm. "We'll figure out what to do later, but right now, we need to get her out of here." I nod again, barely able to find my voice. Yeah, okay." We help her to her feet, and she leans on my friend for support, her eyes avoiding mine. It hurts more than I expected, but I deserve it. I deserve every bit of pain that's coming my way. We get into the car, my wife in the back seat, her head resting against the window, staring out at nothing. My friend drives, his hands tight on the wheel, his jaw clenched. The tension in the car is suffocating, the silence heavy with everything we're not saying. I glance at my wife in the rearview mirror, but she doesn't look back. She's gone, lost to me, and I don't know how to bring her back. When we reach the safe house, a small, secluded cabin in the woods that my friend and I used to use during our ops, we help her inside. She doesn't say a word, just lets us guide her to the bed where she curls up, her back to us. My friend gives me a look, one that says more than words ever could. We're in deep now, and there's no turning back. But I don't need him to tell me that. I already know. I sit down on the edge of the bed, my head in my hands, and I feel the weight of everything I've done pressing down on me like a ton of bricks. The man is still out there, broken and bleeding, and now we have to figure out what to do next. "We can't leave him like that," my friend says, breaking the silence. "We have to finish this." I nod, knowing he's right, but the thought of going back there, of seeing what I've done, makes my stomach turn. But there's no other option. We started this, and now we have to finish it. "I'll go," I say, my voice hoarse. "You stay here with her." My friend looks like he's about to argue, but then he nods, understanding. "Be careful," he says quietly, "and don't take too long." I nod, grabbing the keys off the table and heading back out to the car. The drive back to the house feels like a blur, my mind numb, my body moving on autopilot. When I get there, the house is dark, the front door still slightly ajar. I step inside, the smell of blood hitting me like a brick wall. I follow the trail of it down the hallway, back to the room where I left him. The sight of his body, crumpled and lifeless on the floor, is almost too much to bear. I feel bile rising in my throat, but I push it down, forcing myself to focus. This is what I have to do. This is the price I have to pay. I walk over to him, my hands shaking as I check for a pulse. There's nothing. He's gone. I don't know if I should feel relieved or horrified, but all I feel is empty. I stare down at his lifeless body, my mind racing with what comes next. The cleanup, my friend and I stand over the body, our breaths heavy and labored. The room reeks of blood, sweat, and something else. Something I can't quite place, but know I'll never forget. My wife's cries echo through the house, a haunting reminder of the destruction I've caused. I force myself to focus. We can't leave things like this. We have to clean up, make sure there's no trace of what happened here tonight. "Get the tarp from the garage," I tell my friend, my voice steadier than I expected. We need to wrap him up and get him out of here before the sun comes up. He nods, leaving me alone with the body. I try not to look at the man's face, the way it's twisted in pain and fear. But it's impossible to ignore. The guilt claws at me, but I shove it down, reminding myself that this was necessary. This was the only way. My friend returns with the tarp, and we work in silence, our movements methodical and practiced. We've done this before, in another life, under different circumstances. But this time, it feels different. This time, the stakes are personal. We wrap the body tightly, making sure there's no blood leaking through, and carry it out to the car. The trunk slams shut with a finality that sends a shiver down my spine. This is it. There's no turning back now. As we drive to the remote location we've chosen, the darkness outside mirrors the darkness inside me. My friend doesn't say a word, and I'm grateful for the silence. I need this time to think, to process what I've done and what comes next. When we reach the spot, we bury the body deep, covering it with dirt and leaves until there's no trace of the grave. The whole time, my mind is racing with the consequences of our actions. I know we've done a good job, that we've covered our tracks well, but there's always a chance we've missed something. There's always a risk. Back at the house, the reality of what we've done begins to sink in. My wife is still in the bedroom. Her sobs have quieted, but I can tell she's still awake, still processing the horror she witnessed. I should go to her, try to explain, but I can't bring myself to face her. Not yet. Instead, I collapse on the couch, my body aching from the physical and emotional strain. I close my eyes, hoping for sleep, but it doesn't come. All I can think about is the man I killed, the way his body crumpled under the weight of the bat, the sound of his bones breaking. It's a sound that will haunt me for the rest of my life. The next morning, I'm up before the sun, my mind still racing, unable to rest. I make coffee, the mundane task a small comfort in the chaos that's become my life. My wife emerges from the bedroom, her eyes red and swollen, her face pale. She doesn't look at me as she pours herself a cup and sits at the table, staring into the dark liquid as if it holds all the answers. We need to talk, I say, my voice rough from lack of sleep. She doesn't respond, doesn't even acknowledge me. I take a seat across from her, the silence between us heavy and suffocating. I did what I had to do, I start, but the words sound hollow, even to my own ears. He was tearing us apart. I had to stop him. Her eyes finally meet mine, and the pain I see there cuts deeper than any knife. You didn't have to kill him, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. We could have handled this differently. We could have just walked away. I shake my head, unable to find the right words. I couldn't let him win. I couldn't let him take you away from me. Her gaze hardens, and I can see the walls going up between us, the distance growing. He didn't take me away. I left. I left because you've changed. You're not the man I married. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, and I struggle to breathe, to respond, but nothing comes out. She stands, leaving her coffee untouched, and walks to the door. I can't do this anymore, she says, her voice breaking. I need some time to think. I need to get away from here. Panic grips me, and I reach out, grabbing her arm. You can't leave. We need to stick together now more than ever. She pulls away, her eyes cold and distant. I don't even know who you are anymore. With that, she's gone, the door closing softly behind her. I'm left alone in the silence, the weight of my actions pressing down on me like a suffocating blanket. I should go after her, beg her to stay, but I can't move. My body is frozen, my mind stuck in a loop of regret and self-loathing. The days blur together after she leaves, each one more empty and meaningless than the last. I try to keep busy, to focus on work, but nothing can distract me from the hollow ache in my chest. I can't sleep, can't eat. I'm haunted by the man I killed, by the life I destroyed. My friend checks in on me occasionally, but I can see the distance growing between us too. He's got his own life, his own family to worry about. He doesn't need to be dragged down by my mess. One night, as I'm lying in bed staring at the ceiling, my phone buzzes on the nightstand. It's a message from my wife. My heart leaps into my throat as I open it, hoping for some sign that she's coming back, that we can fix this. But it's not what I hoped for. The message is short, cold. She's staying with her sister for now, trying to figure out what to do next. She doesn't know if she can ever come back. She doesn't know if she even wants to. I dropped the phone, the hope I'd been clinging to shattering into a million pieces. She's gone, and it's my fault. The next few weeks are a blur of numbness and routine. I go through the motions, pretending everything is fine, but inside I'm crumbling. The guilt is eating me alive, and I don't know how much longer I can keep it together. One day I find myself standing in the garage, staring at the bat I used to end that man's life. It's still stained with his blood, a dark reminder of the monster I've become. I pick it up, the weight of it familiar in my hands, and for a moment, I wonder what it would feel like to turn it on myself, to end the pain once and for all. But I can't do it. I can't take the easy way out. Not after everything I've done. I drop the bat and sink to the floor, my hands covering my face as the tears finally come. I cry for the man I killed, for the wife I lost, for the life I destroyed. I cry until there's nothing left, until I'm empty and hollow. When I finally pull myself together, I know what I have to do. I can't keep living like this, can't keep running from the consequences of my actions. I need to make things right, even if it means losing everything. The next morning, I call my friend and tell him I'm turning myself in. He tries to talk me out of it, but I'm resolute. I can't live with this guilt anymore. I need to pay for what I've done. I drive to the police station, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. My mind is racing with what's about to happen, the life I'm about to leave behind. But there's a strange sense of peace, too, a calm that comes from knowing I'm doing the right thing. As I walk into the station, I see my reflection in the glass doors, a man broken by his own choices, haunted by his own demons. I take a deep breath and step inside, ready to face whatever comes next. The officer at the desk looks up as I approach, his expression curious. "Can I help you?" "I'd like to report a crime," I say, my voice steady for the first time in weeks. "A murder." He raises an eyebrow, clearly not expecting that. "And who's the victim?" I swallow hard, the weight of my confession heavy on my tongue. "I am." The words hang in the air, the final nail in the coffin of the life I once knew. There's no going back now. I'm ready to face the consequences, to pay for my sins. As the officer leads me to an interrogation room, I can't help but think of my wife, of the life we might have had if I'd made different choices. But it's too late for that now. All I can do is move forward, one step at a time, and hope that somehow, some way, I can find a way to live with what I've done. She's standing in the doorway, her suitcase by her side. The sight of it sends a wave of panic through me, but I keep my face neutral, my emotions locked down. I've been preparing for this moment, but that doesn't make it any easier. "You're really leaving?" My voice comes out flat, betraying none of the turmoil inside me. She nods, her eyes avoiding mine. "I have to. I can't stay here, not after everything that's happened." I want to argue, to beg her to stay, but the words get stuck in my throat. I know there's nothing I can say to change her mind. We've been living in the aftermath of that night for weeks, and the distance between us has only grown. Every time I look at her, I see the fear in her eyes, the way she flinches when I come too close. I've lost her, and I know it's my own fault. She picks up the suitcase, her movements slow and deliberate, as if she's giving me one last chance to stop her. But I can't. I don't have the strength. "I'm sorry," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. I need to get away. I need to figure out who I am without all of this." I nod, unable to find the words. I watch as she walks to the door, her footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. Just as she reaches the threshold, she stops and turns to face me. "There's something I need to tell you," she says, her expression unreadable. My heart pounds in my chest, a sick feeling of dread settling in my stomach. "What is it?" She hesitates, then looks me straight in the eye, and the coldness in her gaze chills me to the bone. "I wasn't the only one. I know about the other woman." Her words hit me like a sledgehammer, knocking the breath out of me. I stare at her, trying to process what she just said. "What are you talking about?" You think I didn't know? She continues, her voice icy. I knew all along, and that's why I did it. That's why I had my affair. It wasn't just about getting back at you. It was about reclaiming something for myself. I feel the ground shift beneath me, everything I thought I knew crumbling away. How long have you known? Does it matter? She asks, shaking her head. The point is, we've both been lying to each other, hurting each other, for a long time. Maybe we're just not meant to be together anymore. I open my mouth to respond, but nothing comes out. The truth of her words is like a punch to the gut, and I realize there's no way to fix this. We've been living in a house of lies, and now it's all come crashing down. She turns and walks out the door, leaving me standing there in the silence, the weight of her revelation crushing me. I close my eyes, trying to block out the image of her walking away, but it's burned into my mind. I don't know how long I stand there before I finally move, but when I do, it's like I'm moving through a fog. Everything feels distant, unreal, like I'm watching someone else's life unfold. I sink down onto the couch, my head in my hands, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I let the tears come. I cry for the man I used to be, for the marriage that's been destroyed, for the woman I still love but can never have again. I cry until there's nothing left, until I'm hollow and empty inside. When the tears finally stop, I'm left with a crushing sense of guilt and regret. I've destroyed everything, my marriage, my life, my soul, and now I'm completely alone. The days that follow are a blur of emptiness. My friend stops by a few times, trying to check on me, but I push him away. I don't want his pity, and I don't want to be reminded of the mess we've created together. I can see the doubt in his eyes, the way he looks at me like I'm a ticking time bomb. He's right to be wary. I'm unraveling, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it. I lose myself in routine, going to work, coming home, and spending long hours staring at the walls, lost in my own thoughts. The house feels like a tomb, filled with the ghosts of what could have been. Everywhere I look, I see reminders of her, of us, and it's like a knife to the heart every time. One night, after a particularly long day, I find myself standing in the garage again, staring at the bat. The same bat I used to end that man's life. It's still there, still stained with his blood, a dark reminder of the monster I've become. I pick it up, the weight of it heavy in my hands, and for a moment I consider ending it all. It would be so easy, so quick, but I know I can't. Not yet, not until I've faced the consequences of my actions. The next day I go to see my lawyer. He's an old friend, someone I trust, and I lay it all out for him. Everything that's happened, everything I've done. He listens without judgment, but I can see the worry in his eyes. You're sure about this? He asks when I'm finished, his tone careful. I nod. I can't keep living like this. I need to face the music, whatever that means. He sighs, rubbing a hand over his face. You know this isn't going to be easy, right? If you turn yourself in, you're looking at serious time. There's no guarantee they'll go easy on you, even with a confession. I know, I say, my voice firm, but I can't keep running from this. I have to do what's right. He studies me for a long moment, then nods. All right, I'll make some calls, see what we can do. But I want you to think long and hard about this, okay? Once you go down this road, there's no turning back. I know he's right, but I've already made up my mind. I can't live with this guilt anymore. I need to pay for what I've done. The next few days are a blur of meetings, discussions with my lawyer, and preparations for the trial. It's all happening so fast, but at the same time, it feels like I'm moving in slow motion. I watch as my life unravels before my eyes, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. When the day of the trial finally arrives, I'm a wreck. My hands are shaking, my stomach is in knots, and I feel like I'm about to fall apart at any moment. But I force myself to hold it together, to walk into that courtroom with my head held high. The trial is a nightmare. The prosecution paints me as a cold-blooded killer, a man driven by jealousy and rage. They don't know the whole story, but it doesn't matter. The evidence is stacked against me, and I can see the way the jury looks at me, like I'm some kind of monster. My lawyer does his best, but I can tell he's fighting a losing battle. The prosecution's case is airtight, and there's no getting around the fact that I killed a man in cold blood. When the verdict comes down, guilty, I'm not surprised. I'm sentenced to 20 years in prison, and as the judge hands down the sentence, I feel a strange sense of relief. It's over. I'm finally going to pay for what I've done. In the days that follow, I prepare myself for prison life. I know it's not going to be easy, but in a way, I welcome the punishment. It feels like the only way to atone for my sins. As I sit in my cell, staring at the cold, gray walls, I think about everything that led me here. The lies, the betrayal, the violence. I think about my wife, the woman I once loved more than anything, and the way I destroyed everything we had. I think about the man I used to be, and the monster I've become. I know there's no going back, no undoing what I've done, but maybe, just maybe, there's a way forward. Maybe in the quiet of this cell, I can finally find some peace, some way to live with the darkness inside me. But as the days turn into weeks and the weeks into months, I realize that peace is just a distant dream. The guilt, the regret, it follows me everywhere, a constant reminder of the life I destroyed. And as I lie awake at night, the darkness closing in, I can't help but wonder if I'll ever find a way to escape it. I sit alone in my new apartment, the walls bare, the air stale with the scent of unpacked boxes. It's a small place, nothing like the home I used to share with my wife, the one we built together, brick by brick, memory by memory. I moved here to start over, to escape the wreckage of the life I destroyed, but no matter how far I go, the past clings to me like a shadow. The night is quiet, the kind of silence that amplifies every creak and groan of the old building. I should be used to it by now, but it still feels oppressive, like the walls are closing in on me. I stare at the phone on the table, its screen dark, tempting me with the idea of calling her. I've thought about it 100 times, picking up the phone, dialing her number, begging her to come back. But I know it's pointless. We're beyond repair. Instead, I reach for the bat, the same bat that ended a man's life, that shattered the illusion of control I once thought I had. I run my fingers along the handle, feeling the worn grip, the cold metal. It's a strange comfort, this weapon that ruined everything. It reminds me of what I'm capable of, the darkness that lurks inside me, waiting for the right moment to take over. I think back to everything that led me here, the lies, the betrayal, the violence. It's all a blur now, a series of mistakes that spiraled out of control. My wife's revelation still haunts me, the way she looked at me with such coldness, such finality. She wasn't the only one. Those words echo in my mind, taunting me with the realization that I was never the victim, that I was always a part of the problem. I've tried to find a way forward, to build a new life in this new place, but it's not working. Every day feels like a punishment, a reminder of the life I've lost. I go to work, do my job, come home, and repeat the cycle, but the thrill is gone. There's no satisfaction in the routine, no sense of purpose. It's just an endless loop of emptiness. My old combat buddy stopped returning my calls a while ago. I can't blame him. He's got his own life to live, his own demons to face. I dragged him into my mess, and now he's trying to put distance between us to protect himself from the fallout. I understand. I'd do the same if I were him. I stand up, pacing the small living room, the bat still in my hand. The weight of it feels good, grounding me in a way nothing else can. It's a reminder of who I am, of what I've done. But it's also a burden, a constant reminder of the man I've become, the man I can't escape. I think about turning myself in, about finally facing the consequences of my actions. But I know it's too late for that. I've gone too far down this path to turn back now. Besides, what good would it do? It wouldn't bring him back, wouldn't fix what's broken inside me. It would just be another way to run from the truth, to avoid facing the darkness that's taken root in my soul. I stop pacing, standing in the middle of the room, the bat hanging limply by my side. I look around at the empty apartment, at the life I've tried to build here, and I know it's not enough. It will never be enough. The memories, the guilt, the regret, they're all too much to bear. I sit back down on the couch, staring at the phone again. I know she's not going to call, that she's moved on, found a way to live without me. But I can't shake the hope that maybe, just maybe, she'll change her mind, that she'll reach out and give me one last chance. But deep down, I know it's not going to happen. She's done with me, and I can't blame her. I ruined everything we had, and now I'm left to pick up the pieces of a life that no longer makes sense. I grip the bat tighter, the cold metal a comfort in the midst of my despair. I think about the man I killed, about the way his life ended so abruptly, so violently. I think about my wife, the way she looked at me with such contempt, such disappointment. And I think about myself, about the man I used to be and the man I've become. I know I can't keep living like this, can't keep running from the truth. But I also know there's no going back, no way to undo what's been done. The darkness is a part of me now, a permanent stain on my soul. I stand up, walking to the window, the bat still in my hand. I look out at the city below, the lights flickering in the distance, the sounds of life continuing on without me. I feel a strange sense of detachment, like I'm watching the world from a distance, no longer a part of it. I know what I have to do, but the thought of it terrifies me. I've spent so long avoiding the truth, running from the darkness. But now it's time to face it head on. I have to confront the man I've become, the choices I've made, and the consequences I've been avoiding. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for what comes next. I know it's not going to be easy, but it's the only way forward. I have to find a way to live with the darkness, to accept it as a part of who I am, and to move on. I walk back to the couch, the bat still in my hand, and sit down, staring at the phone one last time. I know she's not going to call, but that's okay. I don't need her to. I can do this on my own. I grip the bat tightly, feeling the weight of it in my hands, and I know that this is the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where I face the darkness head on, where I confront the man I've become, and where I finally find a way to live with the consequences of my actions. The road ahead is long and uncertain, but I'm ready for it. I have to be. There's no other choice. As I sit there, the bat in my hands, I know that this is my life now. A life defined by the choices I've made, the darkness I've embraced, and the consequences I have to live with. And no matter what happens next, I know that I'll face it head on, with no regrets. Because in the end, this is who I am.